All right, listen, if you feel like the majority of your conversations with your partner turn into power struggles or end with some kind of conflict, then listen, you picked the right day to stop by. So if it feels like there's always tension in the relationship, where maybe there's never-ending conflicts that don't get resolved, where most conversations turn into some kind of disagreement that then turns into some kind of conflict for a while, then listen, today on Relationshots, I've got one simple concept for you that I promise you will get you more wins in your conversations, which will lead to greater connection in the relationship, which is what you're looking for. So what are you waiting for? Let's go check it out. Welcome to Relationshots. My name's Eric Wooten. If this is your first time stopping by, welcome to the place to get practical relationship advice that actually works in your relationship. If you've not already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss upcoming videos. So today we're going to talk about a phenomenon that happens in your relationship, which you probably aren't aware of and is continuing to cause struggle when you have conversations. And this seems weird because if you think back to when you were early dating, most of your conversations were enjoyable, they were free-flowing, there was nothing tension-filled or no struggles, not a whole lot of conflict, and you thought to yourself, man, this is the kind of person I can spend the rest of my life with. And if you're married, then you probably decided to do that. But now you're a few years into marriage, you added a couple kids, a couple dogs, some extra financial responsibilities, and now you're like, I can't remember the last time we actually had a conversation that I enjoyed. And you think to yourself, this is a mess. I think I married the wrong person. You've not married the wrong person. You just are not focusing on the right kind of conversation. So usually when you find yourself in this place, it's because you have a incorrect ratio of two certain types of conversations. Now, there's lots of different conversations in relationship, but in this video, I want to focus on two types of conversations that you are having in your relationship and help you understand how when the ratio is off between these two types of conversations, it's going to feel like everything's a conflict, nothing's going well, and all we do is have tension. So the first type of conversation that you have in your relationship that I want to address is what I call a versus conversation, as in me versus you. These are conversations which just by nature kind of pit us as adversaries with our partner and turn into versus conversations. Let me give you some examples of what those conversations are. Try and decide where to go eat. Do we want to go where I want to go or where you want to go? Figuring out what punishment to give the kids. Who gets to drive the newer car when you have one? Whose parents' house are you going to for Christmas? Discussing the budget, how much to spend on a purchase, who has to take the kids to sports practice or piano lessons, and on and on and on and on. You get the point. These are all conversations where it's me versus you, and it's not always like this adversarial, you're my enemy conflict, but it's just a conflict where we got to talk. There's a conflict of interest, and so we've got to come to some kind of compromise. Now, these happen in every relationship. They're a necessary part of relationships, so you can't avoid them, but these are really usually not present in dating, which is why we don't have many of them, because you don't have shared finances, you don't have to make parenting decisions most of the time, and so a lot of these are eliminated in dating because we're just not making those decisions together. But when we're having lots of me versus you conversations, we have lots of opportunity for the conversation to go south. The second type of conversation is what I call a neutral conversation. This is usually a conversation about something outside of your relationship. So there's not a me versus you in this. We're talking about something outside of the relationship. And since you have no skin in the game, so to speak, in the conversation, this allows you to affirm your partner. This allows you to understand them, to empathize with them, to support them, to really jump on their side and be a part of the conversation in a way that never has to turn into me versus you. Now, the problem is, I'm going to show you in a minute, some of you turn a neutral conversation into a versus conversation for absolutely no reason by saying the wrong thing when your partner approaches you with a neutral conversation. So examples of neutral conversations would be you discussing your day at work, your spouse telling you how annoying their coworker is, your partner complaining about the way their mom treated them, talking about your favorite TV show, telling your spouse how good your favorite dessert would taste right about now. The power of a neutral conversation is, again, that you don't have to make a decision usually. You don't have to put your thoughts against their thoughts, your desires against their desires. There's generally not a conflict of interest in these. And so these conversations just allow the two of you to connect with each other without having a whole lot else going on. So when you feel like your relationship is made up more of versus or conflict conversations, then what you need to do is you need to figure out how to increase the number of neutral conversations so your ratio of neutral to versus is higher on the neutral side, so you're having more positive interactions. So let me give you an example of what this could look like, and then I'll tell you also how you mess this up. Let's go back to the spouse complaining about a coworker scenario. So I'll personalize it for me so you can see it. So let's say my wife comes home and she's complaining about her coworker and how she's rude and she treats her poorly and she withholds stuff from her and she's making her look bad in front of the boss and all these other things. This is a neutral conversation because guess what? Whatever her and her relationship with her coworker in has no bearing on me and what I'm trying to do in life and me and my future. So this is the perfect opportunity for me to be my wife's biggest advocate. So what I can do is say things like, "Oh man, that sucks. I can't believe you're having to deal with that." See, I'm empathizing with her. I'm understanding her. "Man, you know what? That lady is crazy. Maybe you should talk to somebody else about that." But I don't want to get too much into the problem solving because then that can sort of move us towards versus. So I just really want to stay on the supportive side and just say things like, "Man, you're amazing the way you're handling that. I don't know if I would have handled that so well. You know what? In fact, your boss is so lucky to have you in the organization. I don't think they understand what a value you are to the organization." See how I'm pumping her up? I am so on her side right now. There is absolutely zero chance this doesn't end with physical intimacy for us tonight. I'm her biggest advocate. There's nobody on her side. Do you see all the wins that we're stacking up in the relationship? Because it's a neutral conversation. I don't have to make a decision. I don't need to turn it into a versus conversation. The problem is some of you will miss this opportunity and somehow turn a perfectly great neutral conversation into a versus conversation by saying something simple like, "Well, do you think maybe there's a reason that she's treating you the way that she does? Like, is there anything that you may have done to her, even accidentally, that maybe has caused her to start acting the way she is?" And I'm like, idiot, be quiet. Why would you say something like that? There is no win for you in trying to tell your spouse that maybe the reason they're receiving the treatment they are is because something they did. Now you've turned a neutral conversation into a versus conversation, and now there's conflict. You missed an opportunity to jump on their own bandwagon, be their biggest fan, and chalk up some wins for your relationship. So what happens in our relationships is that the versus conversations will always be present because we have to make decisions. The neutral conversations will only exist if you're intentional, if you recognize them, and if you invite each other into those conversations. So if there's still some negativity in the relationship, if your conversations are not going well, your communication overall is not good, what I would tell you to do is practically then, what does this look like in your relationship? Well, you need to intentionally schedule times for neutral conversations with your spouse or with your partner in the relationship. That may be, having a designated night where you watch some of your favorite TV shows together, or, binge whatever Netflix show that you guys are into right now, where you're just having moments together talking about stuff that has nothing to do with your relationship. Maybe it's playing a game together, maybe it's doing a puzzle together, maybe it's going on a walk together. Whatever it is, what you're doing is you're avoiding conversations that require a conflict of interest or require you having to make a decision about something in the relationship. You're just connecting emotionally. That's most of what you did in the dating process. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite movie? What kind of music do you like? I know a number of couples that, to initiate these times of neutral conversations, have purchased decks of cards. There's many companies on the internet that do cards that are like question starter cards, where maybe, what would you do with $2,000? And so you can set some time aside, say we're gonna do 15 minutes on Tuesday and Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. We're each gonna pull 2 cards and we're gonna talk about the questions on the cards. These are neutral conversations which allow you to build up positivity and wins in the relationship, which will, guess what? When you build up the neutral wins, and when you're having positive moments together, guess what's going to happen to the versus conversations? They're going to go better than they used to go as well. So having neutral conversations will not only create more connection, but it'll also help you have more success in your versus conversations. So that's how you practically walk this out. If you are not happy with the current conversations in your relationship, I'd ask you to just keep track this week of your neutral compared to your versus conversations. See how you can intentionally increase your level of neutral conversations, and I promise you, your communication and connection will increase and get better. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Maybe you have some ideas on other ways that you intentionally implement neutral conversations. That would be helpful for all of us on here. If you think this was helpful, consider sharing it with a friend, and I'll see you right here next time on Relationshots.